I'll start with myself. I am a film producer here in town. I do everything from commercials, music videos, feature films, reality TV, to developing projects that never go anywhere, to generally giving up lots and just going sailing. Um, yeah, that's about all you need to know about me. Julia?
Oh, we cannot? I'm good. Thank you. I'm Julia Benson. I'm an actor in Vancouver, and about 5 years ago, I started writing and producing with my husband, Peter Benson. We really just really wanted to start creating work for ourselves, so we did. We got into a development program called National Screen Institute, totally television program, with a pilot that we co-created with somebody else, and that really started our producing career. That really helped us. So we went through that program, and through that, they set up a bunch of pitch meetings for us in Toronto with all the networks, and through that, we got a development deal with City TV, and so that was, we went through that program, and then they ended up greenlighting our pilot, so we shot a pilot. And that didn't get picked up, but it was an awesome learning experience. And then last year, we spent all year writing with another partner, and we had various deals, you know, throughout the States, like in LA, all these back and forths, and we were really just getting anxious to shoot something. So we wrote a horror film called Death Do Us Part, and we shot that last November. We both acted in the movie, and we produced it, and we just finished that about a month ago, and now we are starting production on our next film, which is a comedy called What an Idiot. So that's me.
I can't top that. It's ridiculous. I can't top that. My name's Alex Ponovic. I started in the film career about 10 years ago in Winnipeg, Manitoba. Brought myself here. I was writing a television series with a friend of mine, and we were doing it via internet. And decided to make the move here and start acting here. And I started in the stunt community there, and I kind of wanted to branch out and do what I really wanted to do. And then I started. I did a film called Taming Tammy. About 5 years ago, and I co-wrote it and produced it and starred in it, and I decided that because I have a boxing background, that was something that I really wanted to kind of evolve in, and just getting things that I wanted, that producers that I would be walking into the room didn't just see like a 6'5" guy that would answer the door and go, "You rang?" So I knew that there was other things that I could do, so I wanted to develop more projects. And so I did that, and then I started producing another short with a few shorts, and then one with my friend Tom O'Pennicott that's going to be released online within the next month. And so, you know, and just kind of going forward, and I've got a project coming out called Numb that we're going to hopefully start shooting next winter with a friend of mine, Jason Good.
And roll his demo reel now. No? Hi, my name's John Cassini. I'm an actor. I guess I've been doing this a really long time. I've been doing this maybe over 25 years. I've spent a lot of time in Los Angeles, where I directed my first short film in Los Angeles called Freedom Park, and then I wrote, produced, and acted in a film called Break a Leg, which we shot for $500,000 on 35 mil, back when you still shot on 35 mil. And that did really well in the States. I won like 12 audience awards or jury awards, whatever. And it plays a lot on Super Channel in the States. I moved back to, I'm from Toronto, but I moved back to Vancouver about 8 years ago to do some TV series work, and I've produced 3 features in the last couple of years: Hamlet, Hit and Strum, and Guido Superstar, The Rise of Guido. They've all pretty much done. Hit and Strum's about to play at the Whistler Film Festival, played in Shanghai, and also a Toronto festival, not TIFF. and we're looking to, it's going to be distributed, released in January. Hamlet's up for sale right now, and somebody's looking after the sale of that. And Guido Superstar played at VIFF last year, right? It was last year. Played at VIFF last year. Alex was in it. And it's on Super Channel a lot. And I've produced a couple of TV series, not produced, but developed a few TV series, one for CBC that didn't end up going, and I currently have a development deal at Shaftesbury Films in Toronto for a TV series that I created with my partner in Toronto. So yeah, I don't know, I guess that's kind of it.
Wow, busy, busy, busy. Hi, I'm Jolie Collins. I've been an actress in Vancouver for about 20 years now, and I always had an interest in production side of things as well. And back in 1997, I made my first documentary about rave culture called Summer Love, and then I went on to do a lot of independent film in Vancouver, and I had the opportunity to become an executive producer on a film called Almost Heaven, that I also got to be in with Donald Logue. And then after that, long old friend of mine, Chad Willett, we were on Madison together. We had both been wanting to make our own projects, and we decided to form Story Lab Productions together. And our first film together was Becoming Redwood, and it was directed by Jesse James Miller. And we just had our world premiere in Edmonton last night, and I just have to share that we won the Jury Award for Best Canadian Film! It was an amazing experience. We've only been watching it in little tiny rooms by ourselves, and so to have human beings watching the film with us, it was such an amazing experience. But the producer bug's really bitten me, and we've definitely got more projects in the pipeline and things that we want to get off the ground. And one of the reasons, another reason I really wanted to get into production is I just want to bring more work to Vancouver. And it was an opportunity to work with friends and people that I love, and just being an actor in the industry for so long, you realize you know a lot of people and you have a lot of contacts. And it just felt like a really natural transition to move into the producing side of things. And that's not to say I don't want to stop acting, because I love acting and I don't think that pilot light will ever go out for me. But it was also the opportunity to be in the film that I wanted to produce and to tell my own stories. After auditioning for so long, you're telling other people's stories, and it was time to start creating our own, and hence the name Story Lab. I believe everything starts with a good story. So, yeah, that's me.
You know, I guess one place to start with this whole, you know, this new filmmaker day. So let's at least try to get some motivation in here for why we're doing this. I know when I started making movies and features and stuff, it was really with my friends, and it was for our own purposes and our own reasons, and we really wanted as little control as possible. Like when we did the film Macho Tail Drop, we got the $1 million. It was friends won a contest for $1 million. We got the $1 million. We went to Budapest. We didn't call Fox back, ever. We sent them a rough cut, and they didn't call us back. So that was sort of our motivation, and we really have always enjoyed the integrity and that side of things. But we wanted to do everything on our own terms, which of course leads to limited success, or a different variant or different way to measure success in things. And you know, if everyone could talk about just sort of why and where they're going with this, because there's so many different modes you can go to in film. You can take a commercial point of view, you can take an artistic point of view, and you can take an auteur perspective. And where are you guys going?
What do you mean where we're going?
Well, I mean, is this a commercial? When you really are excited about a project in the morning, or you get out of bed, and because we all have 10 things on the go. Which one do you focus on the most? Which one do you, which one gets you excited, and why? And does that one win, or do we have to, in stepping into this producing side and away from acting, when you want, and, you know, you guys said before that you wanted to really create your own roles and create your own work.
Yeah.
Does that win on behind the camera, or in producing? Is that?
I can only speak for myself, obviously, but I don't think anyone here is. I don't think we're stepping away from acting per se. I think actually we've probably been working more than ever. You know, I think when you fall in love with acting, you fall in love with telling a story through being an actor, and then you go on set and you fall in love with telling a story with a group of people, or if you've come from the theater, like most of us have as well, you fall in love with telling a story through that, and then you just start to realize. I mean, personally myself, I just, there were times where I'd been on set where I just knew a hell of a lot more than everyone else that was on that set that was actually making the movie, which isn't a bad thing, because you know, I've worked with a lot of first timers, but then you just start taking responsibility for your own destiny, and you go, well, you know what? I know all these talented directors, writers, crew people, actors, you know, and now with digital, it's not so overwhelming. People they own those cameras, like they're the same cameras they're taking their family photos with, you know, like the Canon 5D or whatever, 7D. And so you start to put a story together, and usually it starts with shorts. It started with shorts for me. I think it started with shorts for everybody, and then you go, wow, I did so much fucking work. And then it was only a 4-day shoot. It's like, I'm going to do all that work and shoot a feature, because what's the point? The shooting part is the most fun. And then you bite that off, and you start making features. And what it's interesting you say what gets you up in the morning, because I have this new idea that I came up with about a week ago, and it's really been getting me up in the morning, and I have to get it down on paper. And I think that's a great way to put it. I mean, I think it just keeps you really motivated into the craft of what we're doing, as opposed to sometimes business is slow. And I've never been that kind of guy, and probably no one here has, who's waited for the phone to ring for my agent to call me. I've always enjoyed him calling me, but I've never been around. Oh, I've never waited. Like it's either been theater companies I've had, or now it's film stuff. So. I think that, so where's it going? It's just, I don't know, man, not to be corny, but truly it's the love of making film, if I can venture to say, making art when you're lucky, you know, and collaborating with peers that you respect, and it's just so much fun, right? Like when we work together, it's just so much fun.
I'm going to add to that as well, is one of the things that I found just surprising, just really getting into the producing stuff, was that producing is really creative. It's another way of being creative. It's as an actor, you're kind of like the last piece of the puzzle. You come onto the set, and so much has happened before you come onto the set. And I always felt like I was missing out on things. I was like, well, who came up with that set design, and why am I wearing what am I wearing? You know, and the casting is such an amazing process. And for me, being a decision maker and having say in a lot of those creative choices, so it was actually, even though there's a ton of paperwork, and you're always filling out things and writing a billion emails, but I still loved every minute of it because I was creating something. So for me, producing is still incredibly creative. It's not just the business side of things. So
yeah, I feel absolutely the same way. And again, we come up here as actors wanting to tell stories, and that's what our main goal is. And you know, we study it, and we want to find out, you know, get the best instruments within our body to tell that story. And I think for us, jumping into the producer end or the directing end is just us telling our story, our personal story, and how we could grow in the next project and in the next project. So getting that understanding of everything in front and behind the camera as an artist, I think it is quite essential. And even if you are an actor in here and you want to make films, starting off and shooting with your friends, getting everyone together, doing a short film, that lends to your creativity as an actor and as an artist and as a producer. And it's just telling the story of who you are as opposed to what's always on the page in front of you. And that's the joy for me, is that once in a while I can tell my own story as opposed to what's on the script.
I mean, they've covered absolutely everything. Again, just to add to that, but I mean, I think it's the same reason for most actors that they start creating their own work. For me, I also think in today's industry, I think it's necessary. I really do. I think things have changed a lot in the industry, and and there isn't as much work necessarily, and it's a tough business to break into. Movie stars are guest stars on television shows, you know, so everybody gets kind of bumped down in the size of role that you'll be playing, and there's so much talent in this town on all sides of the camera. Like, the crews are unreal, and the amount of people that will come out and support you if they feel your passion and they believe in your project, it's really incredible, this town. So I think it's necessary for all of us to be creating our own work.
And I think it's a natural progression too. It's a natural progression. When I was starting out acting, I had theater companies, and we would just put up plays. We keep putting up plays.
Because they didn't have TV then.
True. And good one. And we would just put up plays because we had a little theater, a little black box. Until you're just putting up plays, you're not waiting for someone to cast you in a play. You're putting up plays, and that the rush of putting a play up was always so tremendous that it just took your life over. And then it's a natural progression. As you get older, you want to start making films because you're not as intimidated by it anymore because you've been on so many film sets.
And that's a great point. Also, in today's day and age, with social media, you can have viewerships like crazy, and I think that's really exciting with YouTube and with other multimedia sources and social networking, that you can get an instant response right back. So I just push anybody to make their own things, throw it up there and get the feedback, learn from the feedback. Like, you know, he didn't have that back then. He didn't have any social.
There was no computers.
I mean, with that though, you know, with that instant age, I mean, do you guys? What's your level? How do you judge your success or failures in a project? Do you go out to? Are you looking to the audience for their reaction, or is it more an internal thing where you're just happy with what you've done?
You know what? It is. It is. I mean, if you start looking for the audience to determine your success, you're screwed. And I think the bottom line is, if you know you've done the work and you know you've given everything that you possibly can each corner of the character, and if it resonates with an audience as a whole film, great. If it doesn't, I can walk away going, you know, it's the editing. There's so many variables that could take that off the table where an audience doesn't respond.
Blame the editor.
I have to blame the editor. But you know what I mean? Like, there's so many different variables, but if, you know, and I've made that mistake. I made the mistake of doing it for, you know, things that weren't as, I didn't do the work, or I wasn't as deep rooted into the character that I should have been, and yeah, even if it did well, I paid for it because I knew I could have done better. And I think at the bottom of the line, it's what you can sleep at night with, you know.
Yeah.
I think it's also important to think through the film that you want to make. So in the beginning, decide what kind of film you want to make. What is your goal? Be very clear with yourself. Like, do you want to make a commercial film? You know, our first film that we produced was a thriller horror film. And we made that because we knew it would be an easier sell. So that was, you know, we still had great characters. We worked on a great script. We brought together an awesome crew, great actors, but we set out to sell a film. That was our goal, you know? So I think it's important to think through what you want to do. Are you making, I think it's also important to know who you are, you know? You've worked with Chris Elgstrand and Dylan Akeo Smith, and they make incredible, well, they're incredible storytellers. It's a different kind of film than what we're gonna make next, What an Idiot, you know? So we're trying to make like a comedy that, you know, it's just important to know what you're setting out to make.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's important, yeah, the goals. I mean, I guess in the end, when you're, oh, sorry. When we're looking at what we're making here in town, and, you know, you guys are really speaking to the local industry and stuff. I mean, that's one of my biggest motivations is working here in town and making stories with the people here. I mean, how important is it to you guys to stay local and to support, you know, what we have here, as opposed to the larger dreams that, you know, everyone, you know, people move to LA, they look for the bigger TV show, and they look to get to the next level. There's that route, and then there's working in this environment that we have here and succeeding here? I mean, do you feel what's more important to you guys, staying here or making it big, or is it a combination?
I not you personally, by the way, but I take offense to that whole kind of line of questioning, because I really don't look at staying here. I lived in Los Angeles for 12 years. I worked pretty extensively in Los Angeles. I'm here by choice, not because I've been condemned to Vancouver. I have two sons. I'm choosing to raise them in Vancouver, and I work everywhere in the world, but I stay here. But I don't feel like me staying here is like, oh, I've kind of given up my dream, and I'm not going to really get the big show, or I'm not going to get the, I mean, I have representation in LA, and I could still go down there if I wanted to, but I just put myself on tape instead, and or I don't really. It's more important to me. Like, I would rather be here creating art, making a film with, whether they're my friend. We say making a film with your friends. It's only because we're all in the industry, and our friends are the most talented in the industry because we're all friends. So they're friends, but it's not like it's a hodgepodge situation. It's like, they're some of the most talented people in town are friends, as your friends are, I'm sure. And so I'd rather be actually creating and making a movie or working on a show than being in LA and feeling that you're there kind of because, there's being, you're chasing sort of this idea of what the dream is, and you're in LA. Because the dream to me is to create. Like, that's the dream for me. The dream is to be able to support my family by being an actor, and I've been able to do that, but also now, and being able to support my family and being a filmmaker, and that's the dream. Like, so if we're doing that, regardless, I mean, I have friends in LA, because I have whole family and friends in LA, they would cut off their right arm to get Canadian status to come up here and live and work and have a life, because LA is, a lot of people down there aren't really living their dream because they're not really acting that much, because it's so hard to get a role because of what Julie said about, when I'm down there and I'm auditioning, I see actors in the room auditioning for the part that I'm auditioning, and they're pretty famous, where they've been on TV a lot, or they have a recent series on TV, and yet they're in the audition room with the same sides you got, and they're auditioning. Because that's the economy now. Like, nobody's getting a free pass unless you're like A-list, Brad Pitt, Tom Cruise type. And as you get older, and it's become evident that I'm older, as you get older, you just start going, really? Like, is that guest? I'm gonna go nuts for this guest star, and then I'm gonna watch it on TV, and the show sucks. But yet you did this guest star, so I'd rather just be working, which is what I think we're all doing, and what I think this whole panel is about, and what New Filmmakers is about, is like, hey, is creating rather than just being in the environment where everyone else is creating, but you're in that environment. I don't know. I think that makes sense, but I really do, and we put up with it a lot. We put up with it a lot. Like, when I lived in LA, as you guys, whenever you're in LA and you got an LA phone number, they treat you completely different. You're getting offers. You're getting flown into Vancouver. Then you're here, and they know you're here, and so they look at you a little bit less. Or, it just works that way. And you have to get past all that ego. You have to get past the fact that you go on set, and then the lead of the TV show, he's American, and so he thinks you're just a local actor. He's got no idea that you've lived in the States and done maybe 100 more TV shows than he has. But you just got to suck it up, and you just kind of take it, and you just go. And then there's the people who are in town here from LA and really know the talent and really know what a good actor is, and they don't give a shit where you're from, so... There's a lot of stigma attached to it all, which I just don't buy into anymore. I just think where you're doing the work is where you're doing the work.
Yeah. I think you have to think about what inspires you, and the same for me. I've spent time down in Los Angeles, but I'm too raising a family, and Vancouver just seemed like it's my home. But there's a lot of talent here, and I really want to contribute to we've got an amazing thing here. We've got such a beautiful city to shoot in, and to be able to contribute to what's blossoming in Vancouver, that to me is what's I feel makes me feel successful and inspires me, is working here and creating something.
We're the same. I mean,
Yeah.
We want to live here. We want to raise a family here, and so we're just trying to create a sustainable career for ourselves in Vancouver, because I don't want to be in LA.
How do you find that? I mean, the sustainability of a career here in Vancouver is, I mean, it's getting tougher. I mean, where's your, I mean, what components make up sustainability for you guys? Is it, do you find the production, like some of the productions that I've done, I do them for free. I've made movies, several movies for no money. And the success on that was they were good movies, and we scraped together other things. TV occasionally here. I'm doing a Michael Bublé music video this week, you know, all sorts of fun stuff. But how do you guys make both sides of this sustainable? Because, you know, acting's a tough gig. It's always been a tough gig in this town. And they're all tough gigs. To working on both sides, being an actor and a producer, do they lend each other to making it more sustainable? Or are you just fragmenting yourself and making it harder to succeed and put them at time?
More go ahead. But I think it feels.
How can I go ahead when you got?
I think it feels more sustainable. I mean, I think it's, you know, I think it's all part and parcel.
Yeah.
I mean, it's hard, man. It's hard to make a living in LA, New York, Vancouver, Toronto. You know.
I think what Jolie talked about it early on, though, they feed each other, right? Like producing is creative, and I think a lot of what's really difficult about being an actor is waiting for somebody else to tell you when you get to be creative, and waiting for somebody else to tell you when you're going to work. And so if you're out there making your own stories and you're full of, you know, all that good stuff, when you walk into audition, you don't have a desperation about you. So I think, well, that's what I've found at least. So all of a sudden, you're more attractive to the people sitting behind the table, and they're likelier to want to bring you onto their project because you're getting full from somewhere else.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing in the room, right? When you don't need it.
Yeah.
That's one of the biggest things I think we talk about as actors is, you know, when you're not walking in for rent. And if you are, they can actually, it's a little uncomfortable, I think. I mean, I've been on the other side of the casting shows, and I could tell when an actor is like above and beyond just wanting this so bad that it's uncomfortable for you on the other end. But if you see an actor that's done his work and says, all right, see ya, I don't care if you call or if you don't call, I did my work in here, and that's attractive. So again, for any actors out there, just don't go in for rent. Find things to get your career moving. If you have to be a bartender, be a bartender. Just don't go into a room for rent. And answering your question, I think one of the biggest things for me is, like what Julia said, is being full with whatever goal you want to pursue. Like if it's this month, I really want to push the producing end of what I want to do, then that's what you have to. The whole fragmented thing, you got to try to do the best you can to stay goal-oriented. And if you are fragmented going into an audition or going into putting your movie together, it's going to be tough. You're not going to feel centered. So just take charge of what the goal is and try not to stray from it.
I guess we should open up the floor to questions here because.
Please wait for the mic.
Please
I
wait
got
for
the
the
mic
mic.
now. What are the logistics of directing yourself? Do you do a take and run over and look at the monitor? Do you have someone, like, like I'm thinking, what are the pitfalls? Because it's really great to sort of write and then direct but that's the point. That's the question is, how do you direct yourself in a film? Do you run back to the monitor after every take? Do you do the dailies? What do you do?
I guess it depends what kind of budget you have. I mean, if to do playback costs money to keep going back and doing playback all the time. So usually you have someone you trust that's on set with you. Like actually, this movie we did, Guido Superstar, the guy who was playing Guido, he directed he directed it, and so I basically was directing him or watching his back, so to speak, when he was working, to say, you know, that was good. Maybe you might want to do it another. You might want to do another one because you kind of looked a little weird when you looked that way. Maybe you should, you know, or just helping him tweak that. So it's always good that you have a support system. And you know, Hamlet, the guy who directed Hamlet, also played Hamlet in another movie that I produced, and I kind of watched his back a little bit on that too. Of just he'd come up after every take and he'd say, "What do you think?" And I, you know, usually we'd talk about it and he'd go, "Okay, let's just do one more with those notes." So you know, it's not rocket science, but you got to watch it. Yeah.
And I mean, I've never done it, but I imagine Peter's going to direct What an Idiot, so it'll be, he's also the lead of it. And what we've talked about a lot with him is a lot of preparation, obviously, with your DP and your first, specifically those two roles. Rehearsal, as much rehearsal as you can do with actors. And then being at a stage in your career where you're comfortable with that role, you know what I mean? So it's a part that you know you can kind of split your mind where you're at, like you can wear a bunch of hats in that specific role.
I think it's also important to just surround yourself with really experienced people. So if you're new at something, don't be afraid of making mistakes. But I mean, that's how you learn and grow. But just surround yourself with experienced people. You know, like have it, like you were saying, like have a great DP, or have someone that you can, if it's your foray into directing, have a solid DP, someone that you can really lean on. Don't maybe try and do a whole film with all new people. That might be a little tough. Hey, it could be amazing too, right? But I think it's always good to surround yourself with.
How many directors do we have in here? And
awesome.
That's great. That's amazing. And is it? And I think one of the biggest things, and I'm sure you guys are going to school or just getting some sort of education on it. I think for us being on set, especially if you want to go on the other side of the camera and direct or learn how to produce, is just to observe all the time, and especially when you're shooting stuff. Just observe everything that you're going through and what the process is, and keep an open mind, and it'll just sink in you. The biggest thing that I found with directors that try to overpower the set and have that insecurity of them needing it to be done a certain way. There's so many ways to do a film, and the more you can be prepared and be respectful to the actors and to the crew, those are huge things that get you a long way, again, to have going back to your DP covering you, your first and second covering you. All those relationships mean something. And even if you're in school right now and you have you know, certain cliques that you're hanging out with, there's always going to be somebody that's going to help you with your project. And just keep an open mind with all of that stuff.
Also mentoring. I just want to say mentoring. I asked to mentor certain producers, and they allowed me to shadow them, and I sat in with the casting with them, and they let me go through the process. They were, I mean, you know, if you are building a relationship with an experienced producer or a director, don't be afraid to see if maybe they can be a mentor for you and maybe help guide you through a process. I learned so much through mentoring.
Hi, just a question about writing your own characters. The difference between, you know, auditioning and taking on a role versus working on from the ground up and building that character. Do you feel a closer relationship to the role when you're performing into it, or is it kind of just the status quo for you?
Well, for me personally, if I've gotten a script and I'm working on a character, I like to take it from a place that I know that I can build a character around my life experience, and to go at it in my level. And then when I'm building something up, I'm vested. I'm a little bit more vested in a character that I've written, and knowing before as I'm writing the scene, I know exactly how it's going to pan out. And working on a character, you just have to find. You hope the director allows you to find that character within you to tell the story, and I think that's the key part for. How many actors do we have in here? Yeah, so it's about you telling that story through your vessel, through your life experience, for you doing a script analysis and what speaks to you about a certain role, and then you can really sing in that role.
I think you still have to find that hook, though, whether it was something you created or something that was given to you, you've still got to find that internal hook. Yeah.
Me right here? Okay. So it appears that you guys started off as acting and then have moved into the producing and directing and stuff. So what kind of advice do you have for actors and starting off in this industry?
Advice as actors?
Yeah, for an actor, like starting in the business.
I would just say be open to everything. But
Wow, that's
well,
No.
no, but don't. I mean, I think someone said to me once, "Don't be afraid of what you don't have on your resume. It doesn't matter. That doesn't make you who you are. You can go in with absolutely nothing on your resume and still be kick-ass and get the part. So don't ever measure yourself by your lack of experience." I think that's probably the best wisdom that was imparted to me. Is you know, you are who you are. Go in and kick ass regardless of what you've done.
I guess the thing I would say to actors starting out, which I don't think happens as much as it used to, is to act. Like I find that a lot of actors they're actors, but they're not in class. They're not doing plays. They're just calling themselves actors. I hate to say it, but it's true. Like when I started out acting, and as well as all of my peers, we never were not acting. Well, I was always carrying a play in my back pocket. We were always doing scenes in class or doing plays at our little theater. So I don't understand, like, if you were a musician and you were playing a guitar, would you not play a guitar for 6 months and then they say tomorrow you're going to Madison Square Garden and you're going to be playing in front of all these people? I don't think you'd be as agile as you'd like to be. So people forget that the instrument of the actor is yourself, and I never understand when actors aren't training or doing plays. So that's what I would say. I would say keep acting, like, you know, and don't make the excuse that no one's hiring you, because you don't have to be hired to act. You have to be hired to make a living as an actor, but you don't have to be hired to act. And if you really have a passion and you really, really want it, then you might make it through to that time in your life when people start paying you. But you can't expect people to start paying you to act if you aren't that good. You know, like, because you're not really doing it. You have a quality and you use yourself, or you look good, and then you're trying to, like, kind of get in there, because we all know that people do get lucky. There are people who step off a bus and it's pilot season and they have a certain look and they have a certain quality about them, and then they get cast in a show. Whether they're good in that show or not is different, but so we know that happens, and I think people get caught up in that, and they become actors, but they're not really acting. So, you know, I have no tolerance for actors who don't act.
On that, because I completely agree, that helps you build a sense of community. Because I know for myself, when I was starting out, it's hard. Casting directors don't know who you are, and maybe you can't get the best agent in town, so they don't have the pull to get you in the room, and all of a sudden you're not auditioning, right? So for me, I was lucky enough to meet Laurie Triolo, who I got in class with her, and then she started putting me in plays, and all of a sudden you start becoming a part of this community. It's an awesome, awesome community in Vancouver. And so all of a sudden you start meeting people that are working, or, you know, people start seeing your work, and then you're in an audition room and you have 0 credits, but everyone there respects your work. So it's a great advice that John's giving you. Start acting.
Yeah, I just have to put myself out there right now, because I have never done a play before. I considered myself an actor, and I've never done a play. And a friend of mine, every once in a while when I would run auditions with him, thinking that I've totally nailed the part and I'm just running lines, he would find different levels that I didn't find. And then he would say one thing that would get me absolutely furious. And he would say, you know, Alex, you're not an actor till you do a play. And I'm like, fuck you. I'm an actor. And then I finally did a play. And now I can legitimately say I'm an actor now. It took that play to find out what I could really do and where, and all the fears that I went through. John knows, he was privy to a lot of my rantings, and he helped me through a lot of things. And I realized that what I thought my ceiling was is a retractable roof. I know that I can go to places that I never thought I could go before, and I realized that it was a lot of fear in that with doing a play. And once I did that, and I'm telling any actor in here, any director that wants to direct actors, I'm speaking from my experience, you need to do plays. I started this late. I didn't come from an actor's background or an actor's family, or I didn't start young. I started later in life, and I wish I would have started doing plays earlier. I took classes, still a different level. Classes are great, but you have to do plays. Yeah.
Well, and the roles that you get to play when you're on stage. That's the thing, right? Is when you start auditioning, I mean, again, everybody's different. You know, this is a very look-based industry. Some people will just start auditioning for leads right away, right? But often, especially when you're starting out, it's 4 lines. So, you know, you can work yourself up, you get all ready, it takes 2 hours, you walk in, you're in and out before you've even blinked, you know? So is that acting? Is that making you have that adrenaline, that thing, you know, that we're all craving? So get on stage and play those great parts. There's so much to dig into.
Hi, guys. Hi. I had a question for you. I know most of you. I'm working writer, director, and producer. And like John, I've lived in LA a long time, and I've made movies. And I came back to Vancouver to raise my daughter, but more importantly, to make my films here. And what you're talking about, the level of success. Of course, I have my integrity, and when I write my scripts, I definitely hold on to that. And point in being, my last film, I actually cast Canadians in LA in my film, but I had to get that name star that would recruit the money for my financiers. And at the end of the day, this is a business if you're producing. The problem that I'm running into in Vancouver is the agreements with UBCP versus SAG. And there's a big difference on the modified low budget and low budget. And I'm wondering if you know if there's any union members here in the room if there's been conversation of amending those to make it competitive with SAG, because right now it's not. And my biggest fear is right now I'm being pushed back into Los Angeles, literally fly down there to go shoot my movie and come back. And it's really disappointing because I would love to shoot my film here, but at $463 a day versus $268 a day, and the budget levels, you know, it's under $600,000. I can make a $300,000 film versus here, I can't make it work. And I need my star names. And unfortunately, at this point, as you guys know, I still hire all my Canadians, but I need those American actors or Canadian actors that have star value, because I have to recoup my investors' money to make my next film. And I'm wondering if you guys know anything about that, or what your thoughts are.
I know that there's some UBCP peeps here. I know that. And I know that there's been discussion, but does a UBCP person wanna help answer that question? Leslie, there you go. Leslie Brady from UBCP.
Hi, we do have several different low budget agreements, everything from student film agreements to under, what are we looking at, $2 million. Some require no payment, some are discounted rates depending on what your budget level is. The BC Indie program, which is the discounted rates, which is anywhere from $2 million down to budgets less than $250,000, do allow for a non-Canadian performer to be engaged on the production. But our ultra low budget program is designed for local Canadian productions with Canadian performers. I mean, when the program was designed, we were shooting on film. We weren't making feature films for $100,000. We didn't have those relationships to have our friend come and work on the production for free or little or no money. So, I mean, we're glad we're here to take your feedback and hear your concerns, and you can call me anytime and we can talk about these things, and maybe we need to have a look at it. But we're here to hear what you have to say and what struggles that you're having with the agreements. But the master agreement itself is a negotiated agreement. We negotiate that with the Canadian and the American producers. So, you know, you with your producer hat, you kind of have to go to the CMPA and make your proposals and say, this isn't working for me. I need these proposals to go forward for the next round of negotiations.
Just to that, I mean, you were saying that, it was negotiated when, people were still shooting on film. I mean, with the new economy that's sort of coming out, are you guys looking to make adjustments to this?
Well, we have. I mean, it has
Yeah.
completely changed. I've been administering it on and off for like 10 years.
Yeah.
It's not the same program as it was. It just seems lately, we've been receiving a lot of calls from producers and members saying we need or want to have a non-Canadian performer on our ultra-low budget. So that's the under 100,000. And so we hear you, and we'll talk about it, but I can't promise that, yeah, sure, we're going to change that tomorrow. No, but we want to hear what you have to say.
Yeah, I mean, I think, and I'm guilty of it, but I think what we should do as actors, because there are a ton of actors in Vancouver that are starting to write their own work, and so they're crossing over. There's a lot of actor producers. There's a lot of young actor producers that I know right now. I'm guilty of not getting involved in the meetings and not going and putting our voice forward. So I think what we need to do, if there's any other similar people in the audience that are in this position, we need to all get together and try and articulate exactly what we think would help us to, think long term about our industry here. So I think that's what we should start doing as a community.
Yeah, I mean, it's been my experience with UBCP that, they're not trying to push work away, obviously, and they're trying to protect their members. And I think, things have changed, so we just have to get in there, and we just have to have some open discussion and try and find what works, because things have changed. And, the truth is, you can make a $100,000 film now, and it could look really good, and so you could sell it on the market. And so that's why you need a non-Canadian, sometimes a non-Canadian name to be part of it, so you can,
I mean, we've accessed multiple different levels at the lower end, and we've always had product for sale at the end. I mean, our second film, Gun to the Head, was a $50,000, $60,000 film. Ty Runyon was the lead in that. He was great. I mean, he was in Doppelganger and with Brad Dryborough, and that was an ultra-low budget as well. I mean, the U.S. name, I think, makes everything a little easier to sell. And I think the future has really pushed these budget levels down to the point where the product that we're making in the end, if you want to get out there with your friends and go spend a month and shoot for 20, 25 days for 50 grand, which basically means catering and stealing and, bail money for stealing lights out of Whites and stuff like that. I mean, you can make great looking films on a 5D. I mean, we were the first ones ever to make a feature on a 5D, which was a bad idea at the time. But, now it's there and you can do it. And that's sort of where we've all come as a community to that place very, very quickly, where we've now built up. You've done it. Everyone's done the $50,000, $60,000 film now that they've completed, and because they get their friends together, and everyone's got the experience that it is a saleable product. And I think that's where we need to then turn back as producers and go, well, now we are our own community, and it's not. I'm not particularly active in the community either because I'm so busy doing everything. I got kids. I got all sorts of things going on, and you just sometimes you want a piece of a life, because film is pretty treacherous for taking 15 hours a day out of you. So, but we need to stand there and reflect in these producer meetings at the higher level and really make a stand for the fact that we do exist and we're making product that is, on par with people who are spending $2, $3 million on projects, because our above the line is nothing, or our whatever is nothing. And we're just out there with the tools that we have that are really, really good these days.
see, but that's what's great about making film. What's great about making films is that if you can get internationally recognized with a film. And so if you make a Canadian film with all your friends, as we all keep saying, but if you make a Canadian film, all Canadian, and it's a great film, and it does like Sundance, or it gets some distribution because it's just a good film, then those leads in those films are going to start getting some international recognition, and they're going to start getting some heat, and then they're going to become names to a certain degree, and then you can make the films with them. So, I mean, it's all about keeping our industry going and keeping it indigenous and creating something. I mean, the French in Quebec have it a little, where they have a bit of a star system. We don't really have a star system in Canada. Most of the stars, they've gone to the U.S., you know, so that they're treated more like U.S. stars, but there's more and more. But so it's just all about just keeping, you know, keep making films, really, because films can cross border.
Yeah, I mean,
It can really cross the border.
Yeah.
I mean, they don't have to be films now. It can be web. It can be series. I mean, there's just so many different ways to get your product
project,
to you get it out there and to find your audience. And I think a lot of that didn't exist a while ago too.
Right, and I think the big question is asking yourselves, why do you want to make these films? I think you really got to sit down and really, like, what story do you want to tell? Do you want to be a storyteller? Why do you want to make these films? If it's you know, to get the big payday, or if it's to be a Hollywood producer, those are things you just got to ask yourself, because at the end of the day, it's, you know, you wake up and you go to sleep with a dream of making something that that you will move people with. And I think that's the essential thing, and the whole star quality thing. And at the end of the day, if it's about you telling a story that you can move people, then I pursue it. You're just gonna, if it's the opposite, you're gonna crash, man. You're gonna crash.
But I also think that you do have to have both, right? Like, it is a business. You have to be true to your voice. You have to tell your type of story. You know, every filmmaker has a different voice. So you got to dig deep and figure out what your voice is, and what you want to put out there. But I do also think that we have to remember that it is a business, and if we want to be competitive, I do agree. We have to look at the agreements, but I think it's just how we go about doing it, because I know everyone's on the same team. Everyone wants to make a sustainable industry here. So,
Julie, I really thank you for saying that it is a business. When I hear that, you know, above the line is zero, I mean, that just makes my heart bleed, because you can't eat zero. I'm wondering how strategic you are as content creators. Do you go the Canada Council route? Do you go the BC Arts Council route when looking to kind of put out your screenplays first? Or are you looking more like, let's just get this done and beg, borrow, steal, Indiegogo, and that's the way it's going to be? I'm just curious, strategy, how you approach your work.
I've never done Indiegogo, but I like saying Indiegogo. I've never made a film with telefilm money. I have had telefilm development money to write, and I've written countless drafts for telefilm. Is there any telefilm here? Countless drafts for telefilm, and it was great. They gave me money, and I kept writing, but ultimately it was tough, because it's a little different now, telefilm, but there's a lot of analysts reading your script, and then I know it's different now, but so it's difficult, because, you know, usually independent film is auteur driven. It's a person's vision driven, and when you get into the telefilm system, there's a lot of different cooks. But I was happy to take the money and keep writing for them. But then they never really, they just couldn't come up with the money to make the film. So that went by the wayside. And these last few films, no telefilm money. We're presently trying to get some distribution telefilm money to help with the ads and stuff for Hit and Strum to go into the theater. So telefilm can help that way. Telefilm can help you with post. I know that you can get up to $100,000 sometimes to help post your movie once they see a rough cut for music and for other stuff. But no, I think with the digital medium now and what's going on, I think telefilm money is great if you can get it, but it doesn't stop you from making a film. Did you get telefilm on Redwood?
No, I didn't get telephone money. No. I decided to fund my film privately. We had private investors, and it gave us the ability to make the film that we wanted and make it right away. Because right now, there's just so many different ways to approach things. You know, the same you know, a lot of people package things together with telefilm, maybe some pre-sales, you got your tax credits, you finance your tax credits, things like that. But a lot of that takes a long time. And filming is a real, I mean, I think they're little miracles that they actually get made at all, because you're trying to combine all these windows and they have to all fit through the same window so that everything can come together at the same time. And we, luckily, our funding came through and we hit the ground running. I mean, we had like 3 weeks of prep because we had things, our film, for example, was focused on a particular location. I mean, this was the heart of our film, and that location wasn't available after September. And then after that, our lead, who was 11-year-old, was going to go back to school. So there's so many, it's a massive juggling act trying to put a film together for all the elements to come together at the same time. And we just didn't have the ability to wait. And so we just found great people that really believed in us, and beg, borrow, steal, right? Everything you can. But I think that there are more ways to go than just trying to find money through telefilm. So if you can get it, amazing. Yeah. But you're just gonna have to wait a while for it, and then you may not get it. So just be open to chasing different avenues, for sure.
How patient do you want to be?
Yeah.
I mean, I've gotten telefilm money on post and production money with other people, but I mean, when I say we want to go out and make films for no money, we generally, because we want to shoot stuff and we want to make it, and a lot of times we have, you know, $1 million, $2 million, whatever it is, or we're doing this or that, but the projects, you know, there's all sorts of different types of projects, but I am not that patient. And
me neither.
You have to be so patient. We all have projects that we're running through systems to try to find the money to basically live. And then we have projects that we do because we love to make them, and they're equally exciting, but it's part of a greater sort of career structure where you're like, this one's free, that one's not, and then, you know, you just keep working and you're making, and some are good, some are bad, and that's where, you know, and that's sort of one of the interesting points about, you know, different budget levels and different ways of getting paid, and actors and agreements and unions and guilds and crew, and, you know, commercials, you get this, indies, you get that, and ACFC and all this stuff. But I feel as a producer, I'm always doing the same thing, and sometimes you get paid, sometimes you don't, and, you know, there's some structures where, you know, on some levels of acting, you can get, you know, $100 a day on an ultra low budget, or you get $463, or you're at scale, and you get buyouts and stuff like that. But there's areas that it needs to be cleaned up to reflect the wider range, I think, now of productions and stuff like that.
For us, we shot ours very, very low budget, and we're about to do our next one, same. For us, it was about maintaining creative control, just because we had gone through the television process, which was a huge learning curve. And I don't believe that you can do comedy by committee, so especially for us, this next one, it's a comedy. We wanted to have one voice all the way through, so in order for us to do that, we have to raise the money ourselves and shoot it very, very low budget.
I got a question for you guys. John, you've talked about living in Los Angeles, and right here. Hi. You've yourself lived in Los Angeles, and it sounds like some of you guys have all dabbled in Los Angeles. It's obviously nice to be here in Vancouver and establish yourself and have some success up here, but it seems that there is an undeniable credibility to success making it in Los Angeles. There's many Canadians that have done it. You look at now, Carly Rae Jepsen is a perfect example of this. She's from Canada, but now she's established herself here, which suddenly makes her credible here. So for the future, being young, with a model that is proven so credible, like Hollywood, how do we make that here in Canada, more specifically Vancouver or even Toronto? Because Vancouver just did lose some shows that went to Toronto. I can't remember what it was.
Yeah, I think unfortunately, that's a victim, I think, of a lot to do with the tax credit game that happens interprovincially, where every couple of years, one province ups another to bring the industry. I mean, let's face it, film is a great industry for the province-wide. I mean, the amount of money that people think, oh God, the tax credit is huge, but just think about how we spend on demand in the moment over retail. I mean, because we need it yesterday. So it's a huge boost to the province and the economy out here. And the provinces play that game back and forth where they're like, we're going to increase ours. So that a lot of the time is the driving force of where shows end up. I've talked to people bidding shows and they're like, well, we want to shoot in Louisiana. We got a tax credit there. And I say, oh, we have a tax credit here. The thing's set in Louisiana, but they're thinking about, well, the tax credit may be better in BC, so maybe we'll come up here. So that's that financial game that I think really is a little heavy these days on how to get soft monies and maximize, and has a little less to do with the actual industry that we're developing here. And I think, you know, I think what generally we've been doing here with making our own shows and developing our own community and keeping everything as much here as possible is how we're going to make Hollywood North just plain old Vancouver and lose the Hollywood part.
Are you talking about as well, like sometimes you have to leave Canada to get recognized within Canada? Because I know exactly what you're talking about, like, and it's...
How do we shift, how do we get a paradigm shift, I guess, from making it, I'm credible up here, I'm successful up here, instead of just saying, hey, I need to be an actor, I need to go to Los Angeles, and even to come back up here and have any sort of, I can trust you because you've made it there.
I definitely know what you're saying. I think also depends what level of success. I mean, if being on a big American show is what you feel is being successful, then absolutely, maybe you need to go to LA. But I also do think just sticking it out sometimes and just working and getting recognized for doing good work, even here, you know, in Vancouver, it's not a bad thing. It's I think you can be incredibly successful and be working here and be happy. So I think it depends on what you consider your levels of success in terms of, like, do you want to be recognized around the world? Because I sometimes think if just sticking it out where your heart is, I think if you're happy, you will be successful. I mean, I understand where you're coming from in terms of sometimes people feel like they need to leave to get recognized. But
it's true, though.
I mean, and it does, and that definitely is true. Yeah.
I mean, it's an individual thing, right? I mean, I think everyone. It's an individual thing. I think if you have a desire to go to LA, you should go to LA. Like, you should. Why not? If you have a desire to go to, I mean, I started my acting in New York because I'm going to study acting. I'm going to go to the place where they're known for the best training ever. So I went to LA because I could. And because I was off a big movie, and I went, and it doesn't define me, but sure, I would love to win an Academy Award, or would love to be on a big show, but it doesn't mean that if I'm not on one, I'm not successful either. I think certain people, I know some actors who are, I know some actors who are tremendous actors, never set foot in LA and have no desire because it's truly who they are. And I know other actors that they just don't feel like unless they give LA a shot, they're not going to feel, you know. I mean, I have a buddy who's sitting up there who is the creator of Continuum, the TV show here in town. And he, when I lived in LA, he lived in LA as well. And he still probably goes back and forth a lot. But he's created lots of great things in LA. And he worked really hard to try to create a show that he could shoot in Vancouver because he has a family here in Vancouver and he wanted to be in Vancouver, and now he has a very successful TV show that just premiered in the UK and got picked up for a second season and is doing really great. And it's you guys all watch Continuum, people? Yeah. So, you know, it shows you, right? I mean, who knows? It could have ended up where they said you can't shoot it in Vancouver and he'd be shooting it somewhere else, and that would have been where the cards fell. But, you know, he had a desire and he worked towards working it in Vancouver. So it's all individual basis. It can't hurt you to go down to LA and see what it's really about, because sometimes it's good to look behind the curtain, you know, and see, you know, what's really going on. Because what you see on Entertainment Tonight is not LA. You know, it just isn't.
And it's interesting, if you start using it as a barrier to your success, then it's not going to get you anywhere. If you start using it to challenge yourself and you want to, you know, go into that pool and just try to book some work and further your career, I'm all for it. But if you start beiging a graph of what's success and what's not success, that's going to get you in trouble. Just do what you love to do and challenge yourself. And going to LA means challenging yourself as an actor, then do it. But don't think that if you don't make it in LA, then you've failed. That's where you're really going to get yourself in trouble. Just act, do what you love to do, take the chances you want to take, but don't let it determine your success within you.
Hey, sustainability was a topic brought up previously in the seminar, and I was wondering, for a person who would most likely be making the type of films that, at very most, go into art house theaters, would it be would it be, I guess, best to even look for a second source of income, not just for someone just starting out in the industry, but maybe even someone even more established who regardless makes very uncommercial films?
I think in this industry, especially when you're starting out, you have to make sure that you are taking care of your life financially. And I think a lot of actors starting out have to have second jobs. A lot of actors that have been working for 15 years in the industry that have great careers here also have other sources of income. It's a really tough industry to make a ton of money in all the time and have consistency. Again, it's totally individual based, but I think it's a reality when you're just to be aware of that often that's not where your money is going to be coming from all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, Vancouver is like far too expensive to live in.
Yeah.
I mean, it's way out of whack.
So for the young actors, when you do make money, put it away. Put it away. U.S. nationals, put it away.
Hi. Two questions, actually. One of which I know most of you guys are actors and writers and producers and directors. How do you create the balance between being an being a filmmaker in front of the camera and behind the camera? And my other question is, as Vancouverites, a lot of you guys seem to have families. I guess being blunt with it, if you guys didn't have families, would you still choose the Vancouver route?
Oh, that's a really good question. If I didn't have I came up here and I came up here to do a series 8 years ago, and my wife at the time was pregnant with our first child, and then we've had 2 since. So it made me settle here. If I didn't have kids, would I have gone back down to LA? I might have. I might have gone back down to LA, or I might have went to New York again. I might have, because I'm dual citizenship, so I can. Not because I don't like Vancouver, just because I did have such a great set of friends and actor studio and just stuff down there that I don't have in Vancouver. So I might have, but the point is I do have a family, and so then you make a choice for your family, and it just becomes about quality of life without any sort of don't feel like it's second banana or anything. It's just, it is what it is, you know?
I actually wanted to be here. I was acting down in LA, but I wanted to be here. I had no one visa, and I let it expire, and I decided I just wanted to stay in Vancouver, and then I started a family here. So, but I don't really think it matters where you go. I think my husband's from Holland, and sometimes I think, hey, well, let's move to Holland, and there's great filmmakers over there too, right? You can do this business from anywhere. You really can. Yeah.
We've talked a lot about trying to become stars and all that sort of stuff. I do think that we're very lucky in Vancouver in a lot of ways. I mean, we have a lot of big American shows shooting up here. And so as an actor in Vancouver, you're able to get in front of directors and producers quite often, whereas down in LA, sometimes to even get a pre-screen, and what John was talking about, you sit in a room and you're like, wow, the only person I don't recognize in this room is me, because everybody else has had 7 series, So in a lot of ways, we're very lucky in Vancouver because there are a lot of opportunities to work.
You get more experience up here, that's for sure. You can definitely get more experience.
A couple more. There's one there and one. You seem super. Me first.
I'm in a bit of a conflicting situation right now. I've fallen in love with Europe, and I desperately want to move there after I'm done my schooling. But at the same time, I really want to work on like big budget movies like Christopher Nolan, Peter Jackson, magnitude. How would you go about, like, if it's even possible, finding a happy medium in between there?
I think if you're going to go work on Chris Nolan and Peter Jackson sized movies, I think that's your life. I mean, the miniatures unit on Lord of the Rings, I think shot 1,100 days over 3 years or 4 years. I mean, your life is that. I mean.
I think that's a question for your spiritual leader.
Yeah, I mean, that's I mean, if you've ever back to back like movies, you wake up one day and you're like, where am I? Like, what's going on? And you've missed 3 holidays and how many family dinners, and you've just worked. And, you know, I think the bigger the budget, the higher the stakes, the more the investment. And, yeah, I mean, if you're carrying a giant film, I mean, the more budget we have to spend, the more work I do, the more worried I am, and the more stuff you have to cover off. It's harder the bigger it is. So I think it's less fun in a lot of ways. Yeah, totally. I don't even know, how do you get there?
For that, I think you have to be in LA. If you want to play at that level, I think you've got to go to LA and chase it.
You got to follow the money.
I don't know. I think I mean, you can be creative too. I mean, I have a friend that's a stuntman, and he went down to New Zealand when they were shooting Lord of the Rings, and he parked himself outside with his buddy, outside where they were shooting, and had sword fights every day. Every single day they did sword fights and stunts and jumped off things, and one day they got pulled onto the inside, and he ended up playing 11 roles in the original Lord of the Rings. So, you know, if you want to get into those big films, maybe just be cheeky and hang outside and spout some Shakespeare or something and just get their attention. It may work.
I'm more of like the filmmaker directing side. I'm not so much an actor.
Okay.
From the directing side.
Yep.
I think at that you're trying to get into the studio system, or you're really chasing down, you know, a significant portion of money, and I think that again is 0.01%. I mean, that's a level of success that I wouldn't dare try to attain, try to dream about, except maybe when I'm asleep, because you know, that's tough. I mean, if you start thinking about how many people are in the industry and how many people you're actually thinking about that level of.
You can dream big, though.
Oh yeah, but I
You
mean,
can dream big.
that's why I'm asleep.
That's what you want to do. Go do it.
Yeah.
Probably like move wherever you want to. After that, they'll call you whenever they need you. And
no two journeys are the same. I would say
Yeah.
go do what you got to do, and it'll all play.
Yeah,
out.
I mean, make your movies that you want to make, direct what you want to direct, and if it's good, people will notice, and you'll move up the ladder. Work on great stories make great movies. Period. You know. Next question.
Yeah, I just want to get back to, we're still in LA. I'm planning on moving down there in like January. And is it a colossal waste of time just to get up and go and not have your visas and stuff like that? I'm planning on just saying I'm going on vacation for 4 months.
Well, I'll tell you what will happen. You won't be able to get. I'll tell you what will happen. I'll be just clear as possible. You won't be able to book any guest stars because your paperwork won't come in time for the guest star. So that's out. You won't be able to book any low budget independent films because they won't be able to afford the paperwork for the lawyers to get you your paperwork. So that's done. So what can happen is you could get a lead in a big series where they have the Warner Brothers lawyers or whatever, and they'll get your paperwork in 2 weeks, or you could get a really big film. But you are leaving yourself out of all the bread and butter gigs if you go down there without paperwork, because when you walk into an agency, your agency's going to say, do you have any paperwork? No. So how do you expect me to get you any work? So there's just too many actors for them to waste their time on you if you don't have paperwork. I'm sorry. But I don't know. You know, maybe you're one of those guys that can go down there and park himself in front and do sword fights, and then next thing you know, you're the lead in something. But that's the reality of it. But go down and check it out. Go to El
Everybody has a
Coyote on
different
Beverly.
story.
Pretty good margaritas over there.
What's your, why do you want to go down in January?
I just feel like it's the time. I just graduated from school. I've only been in the business for like 2 or 3 years. I'm not tied down at the moment, and that's what, like, I talked to one friend of mine, and he's got a kid, and I was like, I'm not sure, because I agree with what you're saying. If I was an agent, if I walked in, I'd say no paperwork, get out. Sorry, buddy. But right. But yeah, he said to me, he's like, you never know, in 2 or 3 years when you're established, you might be in the same situation as me, where I can't leave. I can't take my family down there with me. And that's just sort of what I'm feeling right now, is that even just to go down and see how the big machine runs. I'm going to come back to Vancouver because I live here, I've grown up here, and I love BC. But I just think it's worthwhile to go down and see it.
Yeah, take what John said to heart, because it's true. Don't count yourself out on that. It's absolutely true. And just study there, man. Get hooked up. Go to theater black boxes and meet people within the community, and just study. Make that your goal.
Put the producer hat on and start doing the paperwork. I mean, like, look into what it takes to get yourself down there. I know it's not easy, but you know, if that's the major hurdle to get over, then work on getting over that hurdle, as well as just other avenues. Like, I have a friend, he graduated out of film school in Montana or something. He was a Canadian. He went over there more on the producing side, went around interviewing for jobs, had several job offers, ideas to, can you work here? No. Couldn't get any job, moved back to Vancouver, you know, and that was it. I mean, he needed to have his paperwork together. So crossing borders is not easy. And that is it. So thank you, everyone, panels, and for coming out. And I especially want to thank the Union of BC Performers for sponsoring this forum.